Today, we are going to attempt to make one of the modern Australian classic beers, the Pacific Ale. It's crisp, it's refreshing, it's tropical, it's easy drinking, it's everything you want in a delicious summer beer. But to turn the difficulty up to 10, we're not just gonna brew one, we are going to clone one from Stone and Wood, the godfather, the creators of the Pacific Ale. So let's get started and see just how close we can get. To make an easy drinking, refreshing style of Pacific Ale, there's one critical component that the beer has to have. It has to be a little bit hazy, and it has to be a little bit soft and fluffy and almost creamy on the mouth. Not creamy in the way that like a NEPA can be, but heading towards that territory. So the grain bill today is actually going to be relatively simple. We're gonna run with 60% of our grain bill being straight up ale malt, 30% is going to be wheat malt, and 10% is going to be rolled wheat, which we're gonna leave separate from the grain bill. This doesn't need to go through the rollers, so add them back in afterwards. This is a very similar grain bill to our Oktoberfest Hefeweizen. We did one recently, which was a double decoction Hefeweizen, which is the most real and delicious way to brew it. Link to that video up there. But what we learned from that is that the wheats and the rolled wheat component really helps to hold that haze and to silk things out, which is exactly what we want in an easy drinking, refreshing style of Pacific Ale. So let's get this stuff crushed and then we can move on to water profile. The water profile for this beer is not going to be anything particularly outrageous or particularly special. The only thing that I really want to keep in mind is because we're emphasizing the juicier qualities of the hops. And again, we're not talking about NEPA territory here, but we are talking about a hazier style of pale ale. So we do want a 2-to-1 ratio of chloride to sulfate, which means our profile is going to be 63 parts per million of calcium, 9 of magnesium, 15 of sodium, 101 of chloride, 51 of sulfate, and 57 parts per million of bicarbonate. The bicarbonate is only there because I don't use RO water, I use tap water, and it's in my tap water, so I've got to work with what I have. But if you have the ability to remove the bicarbonate, please do so. If none of this makes sense to you, that is totally fine. Watch this video right up there, which is Water Chemistry 101, and tells you exactly what you need to know to start playing with salts and adjusting your water profiles. Now, let's start mashing in. Okay, doughing in. Time to get our grains into the mash tun. I'm holding a drill, I need to hold a bucket. All right, in we go. This is gonna be 15 liters of strike water at 65 degrees Celsius. Freedom units will show up throughout the whole video for the Americans in our audience. By the way, Americans, do let me know if this particular beer style, the Pacific Ale, is that a thing in America, or is this just a thing here in Australia? I'm really not sure. I guess, like, it's basically, if you're not familiar with it, just a hazy, sessionable pale ale. But I guess the Pacific element of it is the Pacific hops. So all the hops that go into Pacific ales are typically from the ANZ region, so either Australia or New Zealand styles of hops. So there's New World, tropical, fruity, citrusy type of things, like Galaxy hops, like Victoria's Secret hops, like Motueka, or any of the New Zealand varieties. But we'll talk more on hops a little bit later. Do let me know down in the comments though if you've seen Pacific Ale in the US. Now, this here is how I like to mash in these days. I do have a mash paddle, but this makes things a whole lot easier. You can get one of these yourself from Kegland if you want. There's a link down below with our affiliate program link. For long-time viewers, I'm sorry for reiterating this every video, but for new viewers, we get a small kickback from Kegland anytime you use our link. It costs you nothing, but it means we can keep making videos like this on the channel. Now, let's mash in. Now that is mash in done. I'm gonna whack on the top filter and start recirculating this. But now is as good a time as any to talk about what I'm expecting this beer to become. So, in an ideal world, I would have had rice hulls for this. Just gonna flag that. I ran out of rice hulls before brewing today and I didn't realize. So if I were you, I would add 200 to 250 grams of rice hulls, just because when you're working with rolled products like rolled wheat, rolled oats, that glugginess can sometimes block up the actual sparge and give you a few issues there. But ignoring that and hoping that we don't have that issue today, what I expect this beer to be is fairly light on the body still. It should be crisp. It should be easy drinking and refreshing. I'm not going for these rolled wheats here to make things thicker. All I'm using them for is to A, keep the haze, like I mentioned in the grain bill setup, but B, to silk things out. Because the Pacific Ale is not a not bitter beer. We're aiming for around 30 IBUs with this one. But the idea here is that with our water profile setup and with these rolled oats, that silky character is gonna come through to make that bitterness a more smooth bitterness. So we're still gonna have that crisp, refreshing finish on the beer because we're mashing in at 65 degrees C, but it's gonna be a smoother style of bitterness that kind of leaves you refreshed and wanting more. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be thirst quenching, but it's not gonna be slapping you in the face. Now, let's start recirculating this for 1 hour at 65 degrees Celsius, followed by a 15-minute mash out. At the end of that, we'll come back to start sparging. That is mash done. So we are ready to start our sparging. If you're new to the world of brewing, sparging is basically the act of running hot, fresh water over the top of your grain bed to squeeze out those extra few sugars that are still trapped inside of the grains. We're gonna let all of that drain out, adding 15 liters of sparge water at 77 degrees Celsius over the top of our grain bed. We've already added our salts and our phosphoric acid to adjust for our water chemistry in here as well. All of this, by the way, will be in the recipe in the link down below, or you can just head straight to our website, theflyingwombat.com.au, where you can also pick up some merch to help support the channel, some beer, banter, and bloody good times teas, as well as like hats and other kind of stuff. So if you want to get yourself kitted out while you brew, then consider checking it out. Helps us out a whole lot. After we have run this 15 liters over the top, then we can get over to boiling and start talking about the fun stuff. It is now time to talk hops and get to the fun stuff. Now, because we're talking a Pacific Ale, the godfather of the Pacific Ale, I suppose, has to be a Stone and Wood Pacific Ale. Link to Stone and Wood down below if you're outside of Australia and you haven't had the chance to have one. Photo is going to be up on screen right now of what it is. It's a beer from Byron Bay, and Byron Bay is the symbol of the beach bum, relaxed holiday vacation, having beers on the sand. So it means we've got to do one and only hop, Galaxy. Galaxy is like the cheat code when it comes to making tropical, fruity, punchy, passion fruit, citrus styles of beer. Specifically with making Pacific Ales, Galaxy is just an absolute go-to. So I'm gonna be throwing in my first round of hops, which is going to be a pittance, just 8 grams of Galaxy, which is about 0.3 ounces. That doesn't sound like a lot, and it's really not. But here's the thing, Galaxy has an incredibly high alpha acid, so we don't need a lot to pack a punch. The other thing that I'm doing right now is adding Galaxy in as a first wort hop. Now, this does mean we're gonna get a few more IBUs out of it, but the idea of adding hops before you've actually reached a boil, i.e. first wort hopping, is that you're gonna get a softer, more well-rounded bitterness rather than such an astringent, like kind of slap you in the face kind of bitterness. So, I did that terribly. So, adding these hops in a little bit earlier, yes, on paper, we're gonna have more IBUs, but in reality, it's gonna be a softer, smoother bitterness, which is exactly what we're going for in an easy drinking beachside beer. We're gonna let this thing get up to a boil, and then we can start our hour. We are now well and truly boiling. Ordinarily, this would be the time to add more hops. However, we have already added our hops as first wort hops, so we actually have nothing to do for a little while. We're not even going to be adding any hops towards the end of the boil because we're already going to get so many IBUs from using Galaxy. I don't want to add any additional bitterness. But what we are going to do is add Whirlpool hops. And if you're new to brewing or you don't know what that means, what it essentially is after we've finished our 1 hour of boiling, we're going to cool this thing down to about 76 degrees Celsius. Then we're going to throw in our final hop addition. The effect that this has is it pulls out the juicy qualities from the hop oils, but reduces the isomerization of the alpha acids, which is the thing that actually gives you that bitterness in a beer. So we're only going to be letting this boil for an hour purely to reduce our volume and increase our original starting gravity. Before this boil, it was sitting at 1.029, which is quite very much on the light side. So towards the end of the boil, I'm hoping we hit a target of 1.04, but we'll see what happens. Catch you in an hour. Alrighty, we have finished our hour of, whoa, that's not good. I need to find a twisty tie. Why did that cam lock just suddenly open? Awesome. But that is our hour of power done. I'm now running this through the counterflow plate chiller to bring it down to 76 degrees Celsius, at which point we're going to hold it there for our final hop addition. So once we've reached that point, I will talk you through whirlpooling. Back in a tick. So we have our whirlpool cooking. I've got the whirlpool arm attachment, getting a nice little jacuzzi flow going for us. We can add in our final addition, which is going to be 57 grams / 2 ounces of Galaxy. We're keeping it really simple for this one. It's almost a smash beer if we removed 2 of those grains in the grain bill. But this, even though we are adding in the whirlpool stage, is still going to give us 11 IBUs. That's how much alpha acid Galaxy has. Also, how much flavor it has. So we don't need to be too heavy-handed with this. That's going to give us a total of 30 IBUs, which, lest I miss my guess, is exactly how many IBUs Stone & Wood's Pacific Ale is. So fingers crossed, we've got a pretty decent clone coming along. That's going to run for 20 minutes now. At the end of that, we're going to continue cooling, and then we can start transferring to the fermenter. It's also worth noting at this point that I did just take a final gravity reading, or an original gravity reading. We are sitting at 1.037, which is 3 points under what our target was actually supposed to be. So if we go ahead and plug those numbers in, I'm not loving where we're going to end up. That's going to be potentially a 3.5% beer. That can't be right. Let me check this maths. Maths has been checked. I don't know where those numbers were coming from. What we're actually looking on target to be is a 3.9% Pacific Ale, which I don't hate. I was aiming for 4.4. I was trying to get bang on the Stone & Wood numbers, but 3.9, pretty cruisy, pretty sessionable, pretty easy beer, as long as it's packing that easy drinking fruity flavor. I am stoked with a 3.9%er. So, I guess we'll come back to you when we're ready to transfer. We are now ready to transfer. So we're gonna open the gates and let it start pouring in. This is coming out around 25 degrees Celsius, which is perfect for yeast pitching temperature for this type of pale ale. I've also got in my hand a big pill looking thing. This here is a wrapped pill. If you haven't seen my video on this before, there's a link right up there where I give it a full review. But what it basically gives you the ability to do is get real-time hydrometer readings fed directly to your phone, so that you know exactly when it comes time to dry hop, when it's time to start cold crashing, all without having to take any gravity samples. It's a really, really cool piece of equipment. And if you want to get one, there's a link right down below with our affiliate program with Kegland. I am just going to bloop, drop it into there. Once we have finished our transfer, oh, sanitize that, by the way, for any of the cleaning brigade out there. Once this has fully finished transferring, then we can get on to talking about our yeast. Time to get yeasty. Today we're keeping things nice and simple. We want a fairly clean fermenting yeast. A touch of esters in there would be nice. Doesn't have to be perfectly clean, but we do want the yeast to kind of take a back seat and let the hops really shine through and let the body of the beer carry that that tropical kind of flavor. That Galaxy is going to give us so much passion fruit, citrus, and generic tropical fruit salad. That's what we want to be the star of the show. To help support that, US 05, a absolute workhorse for pale ale styles of beer. Yes, this is a US yeast, but this is essentially what is used in Stone and Wood, to the best of my research anyway. So we're just going to run with 2 packets of the stuff, drop it straight on in, and let it ferment away. If you don't have the ability to control temperature, it's worth considering pressure fermenting this particular beer. I've got a whole video that explains ways to minimize off flavors in beer. There's a link to that video right up there. One of those ways is pressure fermentation. So you can just get a spunding valve, whack it on, set it up to say 5 to 10 psi, so that way, even if your beer gets a little too warm, you're gonna mitigate some of those off flavors. But if you do have the chance to control temp, we're aiming for something in the ballpark of 22 to 24 degrees Celsius is kind of gonna be okay for this one. That will take about a week, I think, for primary fermentation, at which point we'll come back to you to throw in some hops. But for now, I've got a lot of cleaning to do. So I'm gonna get started on that, but to show you guys the easy way to clean up all your stainless steel after a big brew day, check that video out up there, which shows you all about how to use different caustics, acids, and CIP setups for cleaning up after a brew day. Now, we'll catch you in a week. It's now day 6 of fermentation, and as you'll see from the graph that shows up on screen now from the wrapped pill, we have blasted through primary pretty bloody fast. So we're sitting around 1.009, maybe a little lower than that at the moment, which is pretty close to final gravity, which is expected to be around 1.007, 1.006 kind of territory. So considering we've got 3 points left to go, it's time to add our final hop addition, which is going to be our dry hop. For this one, we are once again going to be running with Galaxy. Now, we don't need a massive dry hop here because this is not an IPA, it's not a hazy, it's not even really a hazy pale ale, which tends to be on the hoppier side, like almost NEPA-esque. But we do just want that little bit of extra kick, that touch of that touch of dry hop characteristic that gives that extra pop of character, that extra pop of aroma and of fruit character on the nose and on the palate. So in it goes. I've also been fermenting under 10 psi of pressure for the last couple days because I don't know if this actually works, but I feel like if you ferment under pressure and you create that little bit of buffer with CO2, so that when you open up the tank, it's kind of releasing that CO2 and maybe preventing oxygen from getting in and oxidizing the beer. I don't know if it really works, but I like the idea of it. This is going to be 35 grams / 1.2 ounces, by the way. So again, not a massive hop addition by any means, but it will be enough to give us that extra pop of flavor in the final product, which is what we're looking for. So hopefully a little bit more passion fruit, a little bit more citrus, and a little bit more generic tropical fruit cup on the nose. There we have it. If you want yours to be hoppier, by all means do so. Throw in more hops, do a second hop addition. Maybe you do one a few days earlier and you do the second one now. Entirely up to you, but I don't want this to be an IPA level beer. I just want this to be a nice, sessionable, easy drinking Pacific ale. So now the next time you guys see us, we'll be holding a fresh pint of the stuff. This is going to go for about 3 more days. I'm bumping up the temperature by 2 degrees as well for a diacetyl rest at the same time, which is also going to ensure that as these hops go in, we're not going to end up with hop creep. I've got a full video explaining what hop creep is and how to avoid off flavors in IPAs. If you want to check that out, it's right up there. Hop creep is one of them. But for now, I'll see you guys when we have a fresh pint to pour. And here they are. It is ridiculous how similar these two beers actually look in appearance. I would say the color, the actual, like besides clarity, the actual color is, man, I think that's bang on. I think they're identical in color. This one, our version, looks slightly darker because at the moment it is hazier. It's much fresher off the keg. This one, I no idea when the bottle was bottled. It could be a few months old, could be a few weeks old. I don't know. But let's go in for the all-important taste test. I suppose I'll start with the original. That's just easy. I've always loved Stone & Wood. Stone & Wood is just, it's just good. It's so reliable. You know what you're getting. It's fresh. It's got a bit of passion fruit in there. It's got a bit of citrus in there. It's really light on the body, light on the tongue, but it's got that wheaty character that kind of dries out the tongue just a little bit and gives you that tiny bit of bite, which is just so refreshing on a hot day. But let's go in for my version. And I do have to point out, the head retention is a very big difference. Not to toot my own horn here, but I give better head. The head retention on our version just holds around better. So I have to suspect maybe Stone & Wood uses less rolled wheat, which is, I think, where we're getting the majority of our head retention from. But let's go in for the taste. Oh my God. They are so similar, it's crazy. I need to grab Odin, our cameraman, and get him to blind taste test these and find out which is which, because I don't think he's gonna know if he's blindfolded. We're gonna do that on Patreon. I've just decided we're gonna do that video. Patreons, you're gonna get to see that uploaded to there in a couple of weeks. Wow, that's crazy. So mine, also dry on the finish, light on the body. It's got that passion fruit thing, that citrus thing going on. I think there is slightly more silkiness in mine. And again, I think that it's likely Stone & Wood uses less rolled wheat, if they're using rolled wheat at all. I believe they are because of that taste, but I could be wrong because the head retention is different and mine has got slightly silkier body going on, which maybe you don't want that and you just want it to finish drier and lighter. If that's the case, dial back that rolled wheat. But the actual hop character, the flavors of the hops and the smell of the hops, exactly the same. Could not tell them apart. I think the only difference is, I think mine is coming out a little hoppier, but I'm also not gonna knock Stone & Wood for that because they're mass production. This bottle could have been much, much older than what I'm drinking right here. So it could just be a matter of freshness, but I think mine is coming out with a little more hoppy character, just a bit more of that hop on the nose, a bit more of that fruit on the palate. It's just jumping out at me a little bit more. But man, they are so freakishly similar in flavor. It's actually crazy. Stone & Wood, I believe, by the way, comes out at 4.5% ABV, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it here. 4.4%. Mine finished at 4.1, so slightly lighter on the ABV, but not lacking body or flavor because of it, so I'm pretty stoked. It's not a perfect clone though, because it didn't get the exact same ABV, but I believe it did come out to quite similar in IBUs. I think we hit around 29 IBUs. It will show up on the screen if I am wrong right now, but Stone & Wood's IBUs are 30. So again, very freakishly similar on the actual bittering front. Which one do I like more? Well, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say mine. It's hazier, it's got more fruity character, it's a little bit hoppier. And I made it, so of course I'm gonna like it more. But I am definitely gonna do the blind taste test setup because I think if anyone tried these two together blindfolded, you'd not be able to tell them apart. It is seriously a like for like clone. However, what I do need to do right now is say a huge thank you to our Patreons, because this video today actually came in from one of our Patreons, Jacob. Thank you very much for recommending this particular batch for us to brew. It was a lot of fun making this one, and now we've got Stone & Wood on tap in my own home, which is absolutely awesome. So it's time for me to do another barbecue with a bunch of mates. And if you guys want to jump on and become a patron and suggest future videos or future beers that we should try and clone, please do so. Jump over there. That's where you can get active and talk directly with us so that we can make content more tailored to your liking. Now, your hint for next week. I have been so excited for next week's video. Your hint for next week and the next brew that we're doing is, this is Democracy Manifest. Is it a crime to eat a meal, a succulent Chinese meal? What is the charge? That's your clue. It is a famous video here in Australia. Do your Googling, drop your comments down below if you can figure out what next week's beer is gonna be. Until then, cheers guys, we'll catch you later.